there, this is Kate from the Traverse Area District Library. In this video, you will learn how to purl. In the previous videos of the knitting series, we've already discussed what knitted and purled fabric look like, how to cast on, how to knit, and now this is the next part of the series, how to purl. Luckily, there's only 2 stitches, so if you get these 2 mastered, you'll be in great shape. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, or share my camera with you, and show you that I have already, you're ready for this video if you have already casted on some stitches and you can purl, you can knit every row. If you can knit every row, then you'll be ready to do the next step. So in knitting, I will just review. Ready position is with all of the stitches on your left needle and your working yarn, that's the one that's attached to the ball, not this tail. You may want to put a little knot in your tail so you don't accidentally knit with that one. But all of your stitches are on your left needle and they're going to come over to your right needle. So a quick review for knitting. Knitting, you put the needle to the back of the other needle through the loop. This is not right, this is to the front. You put that needle to the back, you wrap around that empty needle, go underneath, and pop off the old stitch, and then you have your new stitch on there. So this working yarn is kind of coming out the side of the stitch that you just knitted, but if you let it just hang, it more comes to the back of your knitting. So it's important to note that in knitting, the knit stitch, your yarn, I know it really comes off to the side, but we say this is to the back, okay? You don't see any yarn here in the front of your work. Let's get that tail out of the way again. So for purl, this is the big difference. You need to bring that yarn from the back to the front. And the only way that you're allowed to do that is to go between the 2 knitting needles. So here it is for knit. And so for purl, you just bring it forward. And it's basically the same process. You look for the next loop that's on your left-hand needle, and you push the right-hand needle down and in to that stitch. You still have this crisscross shape, but your right-hand needle is now on top of your left-hand needle. Again, I'll show you the difference. For knitting, your needle shoots to the back and makes a crisscross, but it's in the back. Your right-hand needle's in the back, and your yarn is in the back, back and back. For purl, you bring the yarn to the front. Do not make the mistake of bringing it to the front like this, around the outside. It actually creates an extra stitch on your right-hand needle, and that is going to give you a problem. So when you're ready to purl, you will bring it to the front, only through the middle. Get these guys up a little bit. You're going to shoot it in to that stitch that's on the left-hand side. You're going to wrap the same direction as you did when you were knitting. That's counterclockwise. So you wrap it around, then you're going to swoop underneath and into that loop that's on the needle. You're going to swoop in there and pop off the old one, and you have a new purled stitch. So I'll show you the difference here. If you look right up at the base of the stitch, this is a V-neck, nice and smooth, a little V, another V-neck. This one's wearing a turtleneck. This is the purl. So you have a knit and a knit and a knit, and then you have, now that looks like it's a turtleneck, it's really not. You just have to look in there. And then this one has the turtleneck, so that purl is the one with the bump. Now look at that. The working yarn likes to dangle into the front. It's not hanging in the back. So you're ready to go. again into your next stitch. It is pushing down and making a crisscross. It is wrapping counterclockwise. It is using your index finger of your left hand to gently ease that right hand needle down until you can swoop into that loop and grab it onto the right needle. I'll show you a few more times. Down, it goes down and in. It's pushing down. You may hold it like this, but make sure that the way that you went into it was down. And you still have this crisscross effect. If you're holding your needles like this, it's going to be really confusing. So not parallel needles, but crisscross needles around the working needle. This is the right hand needle. You wrapped the right hand needle also when you were knitting, and you're doing the same thing. You're wrapping the right hand needle when you purl. Then we ease it down and under. There, it captured and it's through the loop, and you have to get that old one off. Now, if you want to go back and knit again, the most important thing is that you bring this yarn to the back through the 2 knitting needles. Its only option is to go here or here or here or here. It never can come around the outside. Don't try to go to the back this way. You'll end up with an extra stitch. So now I'm going to knit a couple. Knit, pushes into the back, yarns in the back. Wrap that right hand needle counterclockwise. Down, 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 down. Under. And then it pops off the old one. I'll do a couple of knits here. It can be a little hard to remember how to knit once you get purl in your brain, but the more times you do this, your muscle memory will kind of take over. And off. Now, if I'd like to purl again, I will bring it to the front. Whoop, there we go. And I'll push it down into the stitch, wrap it, bring it underneath that loop, and shoot it back up and off. I'll do a couple purls. There we go. The yarn's in the front, so it's ready to purl. It wants to purl. So if you don't want to purl, you have to bring the yarn to the back in order to knit. Again, coming forward to purl. And going backwards to knit. It's really important that you try to learn to read your fabric. I know you're kind of new here, but it's also important that you know what you're looking at. So if I were to read this fabric, I would be able to read, let's start here, for example, turtleneck. That's a purl and a purl and a purl. So on the opposite side, stitches 1, 2, 3, stitches 4, 5, and 6. If they're bumpy on the front side, they're going to be smooth on the back. Let's just check that. 1, 2, 3. Here they are. 4, 5, and 6 are nice and smooth on the back. Now you can see that nice flat knitting that you get when you line up those loops, and they're all little V-necks. So let's turn it back over. Reading the fabric, purl, purl, purl. No turtleneck, that's a knit and a knit. And a purl and a purl. And a knit and a knit. And a purl, purl, and so on. So if it has this little loop, that means you did a purl. If you accidentally wanted all of these to be purl and you didn't want any knit, I will show you how to unknit. To unknit, you just need to find the last loop that you were working in. This is the current loop you're working in. So you will pull your working yarn backwards a little bit and use your left hand to kind of stretch open this fabric. And you can see, I wish I had another hand, that would be really wonderful. You can see this little loop. Oops, that's not really sharp enough, is it? Grab another needle over here. You can see this loop is the one that your working yarn is coming through right now. It's very hard to see if it's all just hanging there. You have to put a little tension on your work and then bring your working yarn backwards, and then it'll open up enough for you to find the last loop. That spot is important because if you stick your left needle into that spot, watch what happens. I captured the last stitch on the last row and I can release the one that I didn't want. Then you have to pull this loop out of the other loop, whoop, like that. I'm gonna unknit this row. I'm gonna show you what it looks like when we do all purl. Pull it back, that's the spot where you wanna go. Once you've captured it, then you can pop off the current row. We're going back. No matter if you're taking out a purl, this is me taking out a purl, or if you're taking out a, here comes a knit I'm gonna take out, unknitting is the same process. You pull the working yarn backwards to see where the old loop is, dive into that old loop, put it on your left needle, and pop it off. I don't really know why I mixed up knitting and purling when I'm in a purling video, except this was actually a good part of the lesson because now you're learning how to unknit. Okay, so I had done 3 knits and a purl. I would like to purl to the end of this, or at least a little bit. Oh, my yarn is in the front, remember, and you're diving into the front, wrapping it and under. I want to show you what happens when my little tiny sample here was all knits, knit, 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 knit. Then I'm going to throw in a row of purl. Purl is going to continue to give me bumps on this side, and the opposite of purl should be smooth, smooth on the other side. So let's turn it over. You can start to see that you get a little pattern here. This fabric is called garter stitch, where you've knit every row. This is where you knit a row and then you purl the next row. And it gives you this pretty kind of like traditional sweater fabric. So on the back side, you want to keep all the bumpy parts. I'm on the back side of my piece of fabric that I'm knitting here. It's kind of tiny right now, but if I were to keep going, I would have all those bumpy parts on the back and all the little V's will be together on the front. This is the front or the right side of the work. This is the back or the wrong side of the work. So keeping the bumps, the bumpy side bumpy, keeps the smooth side smooth. It's kind of obvious, but sorry. If you purl the purls, purl the bumps, make more bumps, and you knit the knits, you get more smooth on top of each other. Then I'm going to give myself a little decorative edge here. These were purls, so they're V's on the other side. I'm going to put some bumps on the front side of my work. So that means I'm going to knit. So it's smooth back here, but the bump will go to the other side. And then we'll take a peek at it and see what we have. Okay, So the first 3 I did were 3 knits, and the last 3 I did were 3 knits, which caused me to have 3 bumps on the correct side of my fabric, on the right side of my fabric. Then I purled all the way across, so the bumps were all on the back side, which gives me all of these pretty little V's lined up with each other on the front side. I hope this helps. I hope that you're not confused. You can always reach out to us at ask@tadl.org and ask me to answer your questions, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have and do my best in this virtual world that we're living in. But I really hope this gives you some pleasure and some distraction from all of the news and all of the worry and anxiety that you may be feeling at this time during the quarantine. So have an excellent day. I hope you had fun, and tune in later for some more videos. Bye.